Hi, I'm Arka from my phone and welcome to another video. Welcome to the last day of DeSTORMber. I hope you've had a lovely time with all the uploads this month. I know I've had fun filming them, editing them, seeing your reactions to them. And so for the last one, I wanted to get into my favorite albums of the year. Last year, I talked about my top 25 albums of 2020 when I listened to a lot of albums that came out that year, and a lot of my uploads were based on very new releases. But for this year, I realized I didn't react to as many new albums. I had a lot of requests for older albums that I've now come to really enjoy, and I didn't actually have as much spare time listening to music as I did before. It was a pandemic still, but people were expecting things from me. So unfortunately, I actually didn't get into nearly as many 2021 releases as I hoped I probably would. I'm going to try to do better about that and make that a little goal for the coming year to listen to new releases as they happen. However, with all that, today we are going to be talking about my 10 favorite albums of the year. They might not be the 10 most listened to albums that I listened to this year, as again, I discovered a lot of releases from y'all that you shared with me of albums that came out in previous years. But today we are going to be talking about my favorite 10 albums that came out in this calendar year. In creating this list, again, I didn't listen to as many as I wanted to, so not all the albums are going to be like, I love every song on this album. I want everyone to listen to every album. So keep that in mind. Also, another disclaimer is that any re-release, any reissue, any re-recording, such as the Taylor's version or Beam Me Up, Scotty, or anything that wasn't for the very first time dropped this year, I didn't count, because even though it might have been my first time hearing it or my first time hearing new tracks or new instrumentation added into things, it didn't feel right crowning something that could have been a project I liked years ago. I feel like that nostalgia would get in the way of me actually ranking stuff. So these are all 100% new releases this year. But anyway, let's just get into it. At number 10, I have Equals by Ed Sheeran. Are y'all still on? Y'all didn't click away yet? Great. I think within the music reviewer, commentary, reaction community that I at least encircle myself with, this album wasn't well received. It was thought of as just a popular release, but didn't do much for like the overall community as a whole. And while I understand that view, it doesn't mean the songs aren't good. I still like them. They're not pushing the genre forward. And I'm not really asking Ed Sheeran to do that. I am asking Ed Sheeran to give me songs that make me want to dance or groove or fall in love, and he does that. I know I was personally disappointed with the number 6 collaborations project. It felt like Ed Sheeran had lost his authenticity and just feeling like he wanted to give you a warm hug. And this album restored that in a way that was beautiful. Were there some things that were different than what he had tried on previous projects? Yeah. Bad Habits is a great example. And while I've overheard that song by this point, it was good when it came out. And Shivers has not been overplayed, at least within my neck of the woods. So I'm thankful for that because I like that one too. I like Stop the Rain. I like Collide. I like every song on the album at least a little bit. There's nothing that I'm like, I hate. Joker and the Queen is not really my thing, but other than that, it is a pretty inoffensive pop project that is enjoyable, and it is nice, especially when I don't listen to a lot of male pop artists, and there's not that many male pop artists in the field, that there is one that still makes you feel like you're getting a warm hug, not an artist that doesn't feel like they're not trying. I know that Ed Sheeran's not really necessarily evolving the genre, but he is still a songwriter and he can still play instruments in a way that I wish I really could perform on stage in that sort of cozy, intimate way. And so I really liked this release this year. And I understand that that could make me basic, but I'll let it be. At number 9, we have Lately I Feel Everything by Willow. This is a lovely project. I am so happy that pop punk is making a comeback. And I discussed this album a little bit back in August when I did a little summer review roundup. And this album is enjoyable. It's very cathartic. I listened to it at the right time when I needed to get a lot of frustration, anger, and everything out. And this album bops. It's very compact but transparent. Soul, Grow, Breakout, among others, really just let you feel it. I also like the FU song. It's short, but it does what it needs to do, and it allows me to feel everything. Is it a very refined project? No. Is it a project that is probably very derivative of other pop punk stuff? Yes. But I like that when Willow creates a project, she has a very good thought in mind. Like, she always has a focus. Whether it was Wait a Minute, and that whole album had a very similar sound to it. If I remember right, the Willow self-titled also had a very distinct sound through it. And I like that she's just having fun. Obviously, she's part of a famous family. She doesn't need to make music in order to, like, make money and have a living. But she's choosing to do it anyway. And her music is at least very fun. And I felt all that catharsis. I saw her Genius lyrics for Transparent Soul, and that was, like, really eye-opening. I really liked the understanding the lyrics of it, because I didn't realize it was as deep as it was. And I also just really loved hearing the thought process behind all of it. I am intrigued to see also if in the future Willow continues down this pop punk route, or if that was just for this moment and we're gonna see what focus she brings to her next project. At number 8, we have 30 from Adele. And this project came out pretty recently, and it's about divorce. Divorce, babe, divorce. And I have listened to actually a variety of divorce records on this channel, most notably Volnakura from Bjork, which is a much different take. And while I've heard many different divorce narratives, I really was excited to hear about Adele, because I think Adele can make some really sad girl autumn, crying moment songs. And I wanted to see how she did it, because I know for me, while I loved Hello, 25 felt a little repetitive within the album for me, and 21 is still an amazing album. So I was excited to see where she's at after having a hiatus, and also having all that time to really refine how she views the world, as well as how she views the music that she's putting out into it. This album I really like for when she takes risks. Not all of them in my head pay off. I think that spoken word in My Little Love is a little long. But I really like, for example, Oh My God, having that, ooh, we're gonna dance. Can I get it? We're really gonna dance, in a Western sense. That Woman Like Me has a very distinct groove to it, that even if I don't care for it too much, it was something that made the song stand out. Cry Your Heart Out is also a song I really like from the project, and is not a song I ever expected her to make. I also think that in terms of Cry Your Heart Out, as well as Strangers by Nature, as well as Love is a Game, there's a sense of nostalgia for it, and I think it was perfect that it came out in late November as we got prepared for the holiday season, especially here in America. You can't avoid Christmas, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, and this album was perfect for a Christmas time vibe. All those background singers that happen in Love is a Game and the voices together and Cry Your Heart Out made for a very nostalgic old-timey feel, while also you get a song like Can I Get It, which sounds straight out of like 2016. And while it can feel like the album scatters in places, there's also parts where it really seems like Adele has found herself. She says that most of her favorites of all time, of the songs that she's created, are on this project. And you can feel her take her time with it. A lot of the second half is over 6 minutes long. And while those ones are not always my favorite, they show us that she's figuring out where her groove is again after both hiatus and divorce, and reflecting on her past in a way that she's determining what she wants to bring to this new era and to this new version of herself. There's the amazing voice that she has, that she's carrying with her and allowing her voice to focus on the project, but she's also allowing herself to try new things and really just see what works. It also allows us to look to the future with excitement that regardless of when it drops, that Adele will always bring something new and fresh and sounds nothing like anything that's on the radio at any point. She'll just continue bringing it, and I, for one, find that very exciting. At number 7, we have Flowers for Vases / Descansos by Hayley Williams, and I really liked this project. It was the earliest release that is on this top 10 list, and it still holds up after this long. It's a very quiet background project. If I'm listening to an album in the background, this is the go-to album to do that too, because it's just so calm and relaxing. It's the vibe of folklore from Taylor without it being folklore, if that makes sense. It's what you think of when you think of woodsy, calm, naturey, acoustic stripped vibes, but it's again not with the same type of songwriting and style that Taylor Swift employs. I know that this album was actually teased as Hayley Williams being inspired by folklore and was like, I'm gonna go make my own. And it's not that, but it brings something different. And something that I love about Hayley Williams is I really loved Petals for Armor and I really loved Flowers for Vases, because in both of those, she's not afraid to try new things. She gets a little quirky sometimes, like keeping a take when a whole jet is flying overhead. That I thought was funny. And she has shifted with different narrative structures and different song structures. Not everything is a verse chorus. You have a lot to work with. And while this album does feel very bare bones and very minimalist, it does it in a way that's just really relaxing. And while she is talking about her divorce, she is doing it in a way that feels, again, very reflective, much like with 30. Very reflective about what you want to take from that experience and what you're going to end up leaving behind. And I think it'll be very exciting to see when either Paramore releases an album, I'm hopeful for that, or if Hayley Williams continues down a solo path, what this experience of releasing this project and letting those feelings out into the world, how that has changed her. At number 6, we have Happier Than Ever from Billie Eilish. I really like this project. I originally thought it was just fine, and I wasn't that excited for when it was going to be released, but I was like, it's Billie Eilish, so I should listen to it soon when it comes out. And I end up really liking a lot of songs on it, and I like the overall message of it. We started with My Future, which was a lovely song, and I didn't think it was actually going to turn into a whole vibe for an album, but it did. And I didn't know we were going to experiment with jazz and easy listening, that calm sensation, but it does do that. And then it does the chaoticness that is Happier Than Ever, the title track, Oxytocin, Overheated, NDA. We get a bunch of different fun stuff, and a lot of that wasn't known before the project fully came out. We had stuff like Lost Cause and Your Power, and while I've grown to like Lost Cause, and I like Therefore I Am, which was another single that came out, and NDA I guess did come out before it. It wasn't drumming up the same hype that her first album was. I don't know if her sophomore record, Happier Than Ever, has drummed up the same hype as When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? I think everyone was watching Billie at that point, and we've just had a lot more people dropping stuff during the pandemic, and also because of the pandemic, less public appearances. So I don't know how hyped people actually were for this release, but I think when you listen to it as a full body work, it does a lot more than any of its singles. Happier Than Ever alone tells this whole story so wonderfully of this horrible relationship that she endured and dealing with how it related to her life as a famous person. And that's what most of this project is this coming of age and maturity of dealing with this heartbreak and this heartache and this frustration in a relationship while also dealing with being one of the most streamed artists in the entire world, one of the most instantly recognizable artists in the world. It's insane. The stuff about an NDA, about having to change your number, or never being able to enter a house that you bought because everyone knows where you live and you'll get mobbed, and dealing with all this body shaming that she's had to endure. She's had to endure a whole lot. And I feel for her. It's not something I will ever have to experience because I'm not a woman in the entertainment industry. And yeah, she's gone through a lot. And at first, I think I thought this album was more self-pitying and just reflecting on it and being a sort of reputation album. But it's not. It's actually a lot more experimentation with genres and her finding a vibe that fits for her and not having to necessarily be that shocking. She can be fun. I watched her on SNL and it was really fun. And she thoroughly seems like she is actually happier than ever. I think the title is supposed to be a generally sarcastic sentiment, but I think the underlying truth is that she is able to play with her sound in a way that's really fun, and she's finding some joy in making music, and it's something that she's always wanted to do. So I'm glad that she is finding that enjoyment, and I'm glad that Phineas, her brother, who I like a lot of his individual stuff, but also he's an amazing producer for his sister. At number 5, we have Greatest Hits by Waterparks. And when I got into this album, which was a few weeks after I actually listened to it, I was thinking it was going to be my album of the year. And I think now I've overplayed those to the point where it can't be, because I get tired of them. I thought it had a lot more replay value than I think it does, or maybe I just drove myself insane. But that's not to make the album sound negative. It is still in my top 5 albums of the year, and it's a wonderful album, and I love all the experimentation on it. I got into Waterparks actually during the pandemic, so back last year in April-ish, I started getting into them and started really vibing with their stuff, and I was so happy to be a part of the release of it and really see what Austin wanted to say and what his bandmates really helped in producing. I like how this album has this vision of being a dream sequence of you're falling asleep and this is what he sees every night, and then he wakes up in the ice bath and then he sings to you in the future, and that's how it goes. And that is a recurring cycle over time. That's such an interesting concept, and I really like that. And I think where this album only missteps, really, is that it's a little too long. And that's not even me saying, oh, I know exactly which songs you should cut. There's not really many. I would probably get rid of Gladiator. And I don't think I like Ice Bath being its own thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and Crying Over It All. I would say that, but 15 songs is also, or 14 or 15, whatever, would still be a lot of songs for it, but I do like them all. They're all great, and I know that they started with, I think, over 100 songs, and they had to narrow it down. That takes a lot of narrowing it down, for sure. I would love to hear some of the stuff that almost made it, but didn't quite make the cut. I think that would be interesting. Some of my favorite tracks include Fuzzy, Numb, Violet, Snow Globe. Secret Life of Me, I really like the production on that especially. It's really good. I really like It as well. Fruit Roll-Ups is fun. You'd Be Paranoid Too was a very strong vibe at that point in my year. I was going through some stuff, and that song really just helped me deal with it. I would say this is probably my favorite album in Waterparks' discography yet, so I guess it lives up to its name. I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm a little disappointed it didn't get any nominations and stuff, but I do understand how it can seem a little self-absorbed, I guess, to some degree. I think it can be read that way, at least by critics, but I think Austin is really doing whatever the heck he wants and making the best of his quarantine. and I would love to see what some of the B-sides of these songs would have been. I think his synesthesia really works with my synesthesia, and how he makes that production and how he decides how the songs should sound really works with how my brain works. So I really like him for that, and I wish I could have seen them on tour. Hopefully there'll be something in 2022 available, but I had a very chaotic fall, so it wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. He also didn't tour anywhere near me, which was so frustrating. So, unfortunately, I didn't get to see them on tour then, but he said that there's some dates in 2022, so I'm hopeful. Also, I really wanted some of the high def drops, but I was always too late. At number 4, we have Batida Tropical by Pablo Vittar. Pablo Vittar is an artist I really got into this year. Before this year, I only had heard her on the Comme des Garçons remix, and it didn't leave an impression on me much. And then someone requested that I do Flash Pose, and the rest is history, and now I've reacted to her so many freaking times, and I've loved it nearly every time. Batida Tropical is one of her strongest works, especially as a cohesive body of work, because it's so cohesive, it's compact, and it tells a story of heartbreak and how she messed up, when we know in the music video about how she cheats on her lover right before they get married, and he finds out and he's like, nope, I'm leaving you. And then she's so sad, but she did to herself. And then Triste Comte tells us how she's dealing with that. She's sad, but she's having certain feelings. And then it keeps going, and all this techno brega that's introduced into this production is just wonderful. Ultrasom is probably my favorite song on here. Zap Zoom is also very good. Bangi Bangi is also very good. Even On My Surfer Shore, which I believe was my least favorite when I heard the album in full, it's really grown on me, especially as an introductory part of the album, and allows me to really enjoy it for the story it is, and the visuals are still iconic. And I'm happy that a lot of the songs I know are on the I Am Pablo live show stuff. I still haven't gotten into the live show yet because I'm still figuring out how I should navigate all of that, but please let me know if you have any thoughts. At number 3, we have Sour by Olivia Rodrigo, the album that took the world by storm. I am proud to announce that I was in the very first 1% of the people who listen to Driver's License from Olivia Rodrigo. I know it from the Billions Club, and so I'm very happy about that. I feel like it was very satisfying. I actually watched all of High School Musical, the series, the day before Driver's License dropped. Just by coincidence, I looked people up on social media and found out, hey, Olivia Rodrigo's dropping her song tonight. That'll be cool to listen to. And then I listened to it randomly that day and was like, who sings this at all? And then I found out it was the Olivia Rodrigo song, and I was so surprised. I didn't know it was going to be a song like that. And if you appreciate it for what it is, it's very good. I think it did get overplayed to an extent that I can't enjoy it as much as I used to, but it was very good when it happened. But then she made it so she was not a one-hit wonder, which we love. Deja Vu is great. Good For You is amazing. Brutal is my favorite song on the record. It's that pop punk vibe, that anger, that catharsis I needed this year. Good For You and Brutal really brought that. And I also love the different types of catharsis that we get on other songs like Traitor, Enough For You, Happier especially, Jealousy, Jealousy, which has nothing to do with the breakup, but it was very catchy. The album feels very refreshing in the music industry, that all sounds so alike, and we're so used to seeing a lot of stars nowadays just they release a song and no matter what it sounds like, it will go to number 1. You get that with a Justin Bieber, you get that with a Taylor Swift, you get that with an Ariana Grande. And while all of them can make good songs, I mean, I'm a Swiftie, so she hasn't missed in terms of my thoughts. Olivia Rodrigo doing something that doesn't sound like anything that's being played right now is nice. It's very good, and all of her songs don't sound alike. you can like Brutal, but not like Traitor, because they don't sound alike at all. And I was talking with my friend, and she was like, oh, I think I listened to Driver's License and didn't vibe with it. And I'm like, okay, well, listen to Good For You, or listen to Hope You're Okay, or One Step Forward, Three Steps Back. Like, do something different and see if you like her at all, because she has a lot of different stuff. And I think it gets me hyped for whatever the next project for her will be. I think she will be more than just one album. She might be a Billie Eilish, where the second album didn't get as much press as the first one. But hey, Happier Than Ever is still up for Album of the Year. So it is quite possible that the second Olivia Rodrigo project will get there. She's had such an amazing amount of promotion, and I just really hope that she doesn't get hit with the same level of misogyny and judgment that a Billie Eilish or a Taylor Swift has gotten. The new young girl that wins Album of the Year or is the next big thing. I hope she isn't hit with that level of scrutiny. I would like to think that even in the past 2 years that we've done better and we've learned all the toxicness, and the fact that even Billie Eilish on her second album is addressing that, and even Olivia Rodrigo herself, Brutal and Jealousy deals with this expectations of the media and that feeling. And she's not someone who just went into the industry. She's been a Disney kid for a while, so she's used to at least some level of scrutiny. But I'm hoping that we've created an environment that's a little less toxic for a young woman to thrive in the music industry. Again, I know this makes me basic for really liking Sour, because it was probably the most streamed album this year, but if it slaps, it does slap. At number 2, I'm a little hesitant to call this my second favorite album this year because I reacted to it earlier this month, but that is Kick 3 from Arka. This album, I could probably have put maybe a couple of other kicks maybe on the top 10, maybe. I also wanted to limit it to one artist for fairness reasons, but Kick 3 really did what it came to do, and I haven't had an album like Kick 3 in my life, and that's probably because I'm new to the experimental scene. While I've listened to a lot of Arka projects, Kick 3 sounds nothing cohesively together like something that Arka has done before. This is a very percussive, quirky, beat-driven album, and it makes me in a sort of way focus a little bit. It's not distracting. It's really enjoyable at times, very intimate and explicit at times, but it's overall a very enjoyable album that just gets me hype. And it's not like I need to get into the club. It's I'm getting hype with myself and just existing. It makes me a little more active, energizes me. It gets me moving. I feel like I can do so much while listening to this album. And so I'm hoping that going into the new year, I can still use the power of this album to help me. Just like a 34, 35 minutes. It's a pretty compact album. And aside from My Two, which it's fine now, I guess, but the rest of the album is just wonderful and flows really nicely together and just gets you pumped. And I don't know, I think that might be a synesthesia thing. It hits the brain nerves different. I don't know how else to describe it. For sure, my favorite Arka project that she's ever released. Definitely the highlight of the kicks. And I am excited to see what the new era for her holds next year. Also, I just joined the Mutants Discord literally today, which is very exciting. And I am so excited to connect with some of y'all there. And that brings us to our number 1 spot, and that is the wonderful, the exciting, If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power from Halsey. This album was amazingly produced by 9 Inch Nails, which I need to get into just some of their work, because if they made this album, some people feel like, well, I would just rather listen to a 9 Inch Nails record. I'm like, really? All right, we'll try it. When I listen to this album, I feel like I know most of the words or feel most of the vibes. Like when we get into Bells in Santa Fe and it gets built up and we know that transition is going to happen. I know exactly when that transition is about to happen, and I'm ready to go into Easier Than Lying. Lilith hits so hard. A Girl is a Gun hits so hard. Honey hits so hard. Those are probably some of my favorites. But I like the whole album as a whole. This album does not have a skip to me. It has songs that I'm like, okay, we vibe for a little bit. Like a 1121 or Whispers. They don't hit the same way. But even The Tradition, which I think was my least favorite at that time, it just gets me so hyped for not only that song itself, but for the rest of the album, because this album is in a perfect order. It allows me to exist. It changes vibes regularly that allows me to not feel like I'm getting overwhelmed with one thing. But it's a perfect soundtrack for the car, for your life while you study. Well, you probably might not get as much done. We'll save Kick 3 for that. But this one, oh, it's just wonderful. And I'm so grateful that it has been dropped in our hands. I was a little surprised that I liked this album as much as I did. Because even though I've loved all previous Halsey projects, I think the art style and the fact it was coming with this film, I was a little nervous that it might be music that's more soundtracky and not necessarily an album in its own right. And this is an album in its own right, and it is the best album that Halsey has ever made. And I would argue that it is probably the best album that came out this entire year, at least to my ears. With that, we have finished our top 10, and I feel like I have given 10 albums the credit that they're due. They deserve a lot, and I hope that if you haven't listened to any of these projects before, you should. I have reactions to many of them, not all of them, but a good portion of them, and I would highly recommend you check them out if you like the album and you want to hear my reaction to them. All of them are going to be positive. Maybe not full in love yet, because that takes some time and re-listening, but I really enjoyed all these albums thoroughly, and I hope you did as well. Rather than telling me all the ones I didn't include, because a lot of them I didn't listen to, or I just didn't hear what you heard, let me know just down in the comments below what your favorite albums were this year. What some albums that, if I haven't heard before, which ones I should react to. I'm actually also restarting my TikTok to talk more about music and stuff like that. That's is in the description below. But I hope to cover some albums that I don't have time to personally react to, as well as some songs that I, again, don't have time to react to, or I listened to and had thoughts to share with you. And so I hope that will be a space for me to listen to more projects in a way that's a little more doable and less committed than filming a whole reaction. So look out for that in the new year, as well as for the reactions and other stuff that you'll get from me on here. Also, last year I did an anticipated album video, and there's even some artists that dropped albums that I still didn't even listen to them that I anticipated. So that tells you how far behind I am on that. So hopefully I'll listen to all those projects, at least on my own time. But what are some albums that you are hoping for in the new year? My list is just the ones that didn't drop, that were on that list last year, because I don't have time to make a new list, and there's so much releases coming out. I'm not desperately waiting for anyone in particular. I would love a new Rina Sawayama one. I think that's my main thing, and some more re-recordings of Taylor. Those are the highest ones on my wish list. If you like this video, please like it, please comment down below, check me to react or listen to next, subscribe to my channel if you're not already and you'd like to be, and thanks for watching. This is TurtleStormer, catch you later.
It's storming turtles from out of the sky. Turtles, don't need to know why. Just smile big, open your eyes. It's storming turtles from out of the sky. Turtles, don't need to know why.